The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Health Revolution. We are so excited that you are here. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and have we got an episode for you? You know, our show is all about engaging conversations, elevating health and wellness, and empowering transformation. And this is where we have the impactful, productive conversations that we need to have in order to move the needle forward. So, quick reminder for everyone, no matter where you're tuning in from, how you're streaming on in, we are live. And so just below where you see the display for the show, you'll notice a little tab for the show notes. You're going to have all the information that you need to get in contact with our incredible guest today. So I just want to point that out. And of course, for anyone who is tuning in live right now, you can certainly hop into the comments. Feel free to share feedback, any questions that you might have, and that way we can integrate them into the show. So without further ado, let me introduce to you my guest, Jennifer Redmond. And this is such an incredible topic that affects so many women today, and we're doing a deep dive into it. So Jennifer Redmond, she empowers women to take a 360-degree view of their wellness and helps them implement customized dietary lifestyle changes to boost fertility or manage perimenopause and menopause as well, and feel deeply supported in the process. She's a fertility and hormonal health expert. She is a certified integrative nutrition coach. She's a graduate of the Women's Functional and Integrative Medicine Professional Training Program, formerly as the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Fertility Authority, which is now Progeny, and the director of communications for Resolve, the National Infertility Association. She has literally, and I do mean literally, written and edited thousands of articles on fertility and infertility. If you hadn't caught all my hints, she is level expert in this area of expertise. So without further ado, I've got to bring her on. Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here, Adriana. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so glad that you're here because we need to dive into fertility issues, and then of course how this impacts the perimenopause and the menopause journey. This is an area that obviously at some point in time affects 100% of all women. So can you tell us a little bit about you and just all of the filling in the blanks for the intro I just shared?
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to. So like you said, I am an integrative nutrition coach and a hormonal health expert. My career prior to working as a coach, as I am now, I was a writer and editor, a more mainstream writer and editor. I'm also a former fertility patient. And so I, like you said, worked for the National Infertility Association. I was the director of communications. From there, I went on to be a co-founder and editor-in-chief of Fertility Authority. And I realized through all these years of writing and editing articles about fertility, infertility, hormonal health, reproductive health, that there wasn't enough focus on wellness as it pertains to hormonal health. There's a lot of focus on illness. So I decided to pivot my career, learn about integrative nutrition, learn more about hormonal health. And I found that the way that I could have the biggest impact on women was working with them one-on-one and in group programs. And so that's what I do. I believe that women really need to be empowered. You and I have talked about this, really need to be empowered, really have to have the knowledge to know how to best support their bodies in these major hormonal and life transitions.
And this is so impactful because this is something that's not really talked about. And can you share insight as to why this is not a subject that's not more commonly explored?
Yeah, so I think it's a few things. I think with fertility, historically, there's been a lot of shame around it. Women just didn't feel comfortable talking about it. I know when I was going through my infertility journey, I kind of felt like the girl without the baby. All my friends were having children. I didn't want to burden them with what I was going through. And honestly, as well-meaning as people are, they often just don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They give unsolicited advice or advice that's not that helpful. So that can make you sort of go inward too. I think that we're not taught from a young age about our cycles, about our menstrual cycles. So we know that we get a period. It feels like it's annoying, right, when it first starts. And we don't understand that sort of the way your period is a really good look into what's happening in your body. It's been often called another vital sign. So just like temperature or heart rate, your menstrual cycle can really be looked at as a vital sign, giving you clues as to things that are not happening in your body. You know, I hear from my clients all the time, my perimenopause clients, that they'll go to the doctor with symptoms. There are 34 symptoms of perimenopause. They'll go to their doctor talking about symptoms. You know, I've got brain fog, I've got fatigue, like I don't really feel like having sex anymore. And time again, my clients are hearing from their doctors, yeah, it's perimenopause. You know, it's going to last a while, the end. So I'm here, like I said, to really empower women to understand that we should be talking about this stuff. We should be talking about our cycles. We should be talking about our fertility or infertility in a safe place, in a place where you're going to get support. And we really need to be talking about perimenopause because, like I said, 34 symptoms, right? And it's going to happen to all of us. It's going to happen to all of us. If we're here on this earth, we're going to go through perimenopause.
Yes. So you mentioned that you were a fertility patient. So how did, if you can take us through some of the takeaway points of your journey where you looked back and you were a pioneer of your own life, and how were you able to put one foot in front of the other and address it at a time where, you know, maybe the support medically speaking may not have been where you wanted it to be?
Yeah. So, absolutely. So I had a diagnosis. I sometimes like to put that in quotes, a diagnosis of unexplained infertility, which is a super frustrating diagnosis because that basically just means we don't know why you can't have children. And fertility treatment is the next best step. So my husband and I went through 6 rounds of fertility treatment. We didn't go through it, you know, sort of back to back to back. I had cycle cancellations. I had cycles where I overstimulated or understimulated. You know, life was happening. I just didn't have the capacity to do cycles back to back. I think what people don't understand, if you haven't gone through it, is that infertility treatment is exhausting. It's exhausting physically. It's exhausting emotionally. It's exhausting financially. It puts strains on a lot of your resources. It puts strains on your relationships. One of the reasons that I love the work that I do is that I didn't have the support that I needed outside my doctor's office. My doctor also, and you know, I love the medical community. I believe in Western medicine, right? But my doctor's office didn't have the capacity or the resources, excuse me, to offer me the support that I needed. I did ultimately find a support group that was super helpful. So we went on this journey, 6 rounds of treatment. I did get pregnant my first cycle. So I was glass half full. I thought, it happened the first time, of course it's going to happen again. I got pregnant on that first cycle. I miscarried at 11 weeks. That was a terrible thing to go through. Again, miscarriage, also a very silent, solitary thing to go through. We don't really have rituals around miscarriage, although for women who go through them, I do encourage that and can even help them figure out what might be healing to them. It's just a very silent, invisible loss, really. People didn't know I was pregnant, and then they didn't know I was miscarrying. So like I said, every cycle after that, I thought, well, of course it's going to happen. It happened the first time. I did never have another pregnancy. My husband and I, after that 6th cycle, decided to take a break. Like I said, I found a great support group, did a lot. I found a great therapist. You know, your first therapist is not always your best therapist. For me, it was important to find a therapist who really understood infertility. My therapist actually also happened to have gone through infertility, which I think was really helpful, and explored a lot of avenues. We explored adoption. We looked into a lot of things. I had an aha moment one day, Adriana, where I thought, you know what? We're still a family. Like, even if we don't have kids, we're still a family. And so we decided to try that on, and we ultimately decided to not have children. So that's how I resolved my infertility journey. And now I have, honestly, the deepest honor to be able to support women in their journeys, and to know that whatever the outcome is, you know, you can be okay. You can be more than okay. You can thrive.
You have an incredible story. Do you, looking back when you were collaborating with your physician, the specialist that you're working with, what ways, even within their limited scopes of training that they had, what ways did they try to be helpful to you, or that you could tell that they were doing, that they were making the effort to support you? Were they supporting you as best as they could, looking back?
Looking back, I would say probably as best as they could. Many fertility clinics do now have a wealth of resources for their patients. So whether that's a therapist who's either on site or somebody that they refer to. Acupuncture was something that I did when I was going through my fertility treatments. My clinic didn't necessarily recommend it, but we talked about it. And there are actually studies that really show the benefits of acupuncture with fertility treatment. So I think it's really important to find, whether it's through your fertility clinic or just through your network, sort of who are the other helpers and healers that can support you. Many clinics do work with nutritionists now. Like I said, acupuncturists, therapists. There are fertility clinics, many fertility clinics that refer to me to give their patients the support that they need.
So the impact on you, and obviously you and your husband during this time, what helped the two of you keep going forward and make the decisions that you made just as you were navigating through that process?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So, like I said, therapy, super important, super helpful. My support group, where I found other women to connect with who were going through the same thing, that was really helpful. Really open lines of communication between my husband and me. Learning who were the people, who were our friends and family that we could talk to about it, and who were our friends and family that we couldn't talk to about it. You know, having those boundaries of knowing who could be supportive. And again, no fault of their own. They haven't been through it. They just might not know how to support you. So keeping our lines of communication open. Often if it's, if the female fertility is the issue, often the partner just doesn't feel that involved. So really involving him. You know, I wanted my husband to come to the appointments with me to help me think about the questions to ask my doctor. I wanted him to do my injections. I did not want to do my own injections.
Right.
You know, it helped me involve him in it, but it also helped him feel like a bigger part of it, because really I was doing all the work, right? So I think just engaging with your partner as best you can and having the conversations and asking the questions. Does, you know, you can feel a little bit like you're on a hamster wheel when you're going through fertility treatments, like cycle failed, start again, cycle failed, start again. So really taking a step back, is this working for us in this moment? What feels good about this? What doesn't feel good about this? And really trying to just make informed decisions and really checking in with your gut. Those gut checks are super helpful.
This is really good. And I feel compelled to ask what are some examples of statements that somebody could say? So for viewers who are watching either live or on demand replay, what are some examples of powerful statements that say someone can use to express needing support, either from their partner or also from whoever, whichever healthcare provider that they're using? What are some statements that they could utilize to best express their needs?
Yeah. So I always say to my clients, and I actually even often support my clients with this, like, let's make a list of questions to ask your doctor so that you really understand what's going to happen at this stage of treatment, what's going to happen going forward. So to sort of go in prepared with a list of questions that can really help you. I think, when you're talking about friends and family, it can be really helpful and really powerful to say, I just need you to listen right now. I'm not asking you for solutions. I'm not asking you to brainstorm with me. I just really need someone to listen to me. I think that can be really helpful and real important. I think with your partner, just daily check-ins, really, because, you're going through this cycle, daily check-ins. This is how I'm feeling today. How are you feeling today? Really making it a point to connect with each other, because you're loading your body with hormones. You can feel a little vulnerable, a lot vulnerable. There's a lot of, things happening during the course of the cycle. You're getting ultrasounds and blood tests. And so really just checking in with each other, letting your partner know, this is what would be helpful for me today. Whether that's just some downtime, a little Netflix, a little, maybe you need to have a conversation. I need to talk to you about this. But really, you don't know what each other are going through. I hear a lot from my clients that what I said earlier, the partner isn't that involved, but it doesn't mean they're not involved in here, right? So really checking in with each other and learning how you best communicate and can support each other.
Do you find that the communication piece can be a challenge for the families that you work with?
It can, because like I said, for a lot of my clients, I work with women. And so for a lot of the women that I work with, it's just that feeling of he's not that involved with the cycle until he has to go and give a sperm sample. And so really bringing him into it feels important for many of my clients. For some of them, they're just like, nope, I'm going to do my own shots. I'm going to do my own thing. I really need to be in control of this, which I get. But just figuring out what level of engagement feels right for you and your partner. It's really individualized.
And so I find extremely interesting that for something like this, it would require closing ranks. And are there things that help couples that if the communication piece is just emerging but not quite there, are there other things that help? I know you mentioned therapy. Are there things that just bring couples together so that they can tackle this as a unit?
The unit, yeah, that's such a good point, right? So yeah, certainly therapy, whether that's individual, couples, or even there are some groups for couples actually, so you could go together. Really figuring out, how do I want to say this? Like really figuring out, like if you've gotten this far, however long you've been together, right, and you've decided to do this, hopefully you've made this decision together to pursue. You're both on board with it. I will say for many couples, trying to decide on a treatment, or if a treatment fails, if you're going to continue treatment or moving on to a different treatment or a different method of building your family, that might be adoption or looking at not having children. I think that it's really important to understand that it can take a minute for couples to get on the same page at the same time. So giving yourself grace, giving your partner grace, and knowing that you might have different ways and different time frames for getting there. But I think the important thing is to just talk. And if, some of my clients, their partners aren't big talkers, I know that men sort of sometimes can be holding in feelings a little bit more, maybe getting them to journal about it and then sharing with you what they've written in their journal. So things like that to just kind of figure out ways to come together.
These are incredible gems to take away for couples. We're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. We will be right back here on The Health Revolution.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on the Tour of Love.
And the E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
We're back here on The Health Revolution and spending some quality time with our guest, Jennifer Redmond. She is a fertility and hormonal health expert. She is someone who works specifically in the realm of fertility and perimenopause, segueing into menopause, so working with a lot of women. And Jennifer, as we begin a transition to talk about perimenopause and how that affects this chapter in so many women's lives, I do want to ask you, the role of nutrition in fertility and approaching that aspect. What kind of a role does that play, and how do you approach clients in tackling nutrition and covering this?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good question. So I think the goals of nutrition for hormonal health, including fertility, are one, to reduce inflammation, which is the precursor to all disease, right? We want to really think about increasing our nutrient intake. We want to look at ways to eat that will support your menstrual cycle if you are still getting a period. And then we also want to think about eliminating toxins, which can really disrupt your hormones, wreak havoc with blood sugar. So I think all those things are important. I think that when we think about nutrition for fertility, it's not one size fits all, right? Like anything else, we have different, I refer to it as bio-individuality. We have different ways of eating based on preferences, based on lifestyle choices. You might be vegan or vegetarian or paleo, but very generally, the best way to eat for fertility is the Mediterranean style of eating. So that's high in wild-caught fish. It's high in omega-3 fatty acids, lots of fresh vegetables, really no processed foods, and then less chicken, and then even less red meat. So when you think about health in general, people who live in those so-called blue zones, which are the healthiest zones in the world, Mediterranean diet. But the things we want to really think about, just eating those good quality, real whole foods, not things that come from packages, We want to think about getting healthy sources of protein. And we really need to think about, it's a very unpopular thing to say, but breaking up with sugar. Sugar really wreaks havoc on so many of our systems in our body, and we hear it just linked to so many diseases. And certainly when we're thinking about blood sugar and insulin resistance, sugar is a big culprit there. So those are some sort of overarching themes around food and fertility.
I 100% agree with what you're saying about sugar. That is so true. As we're so I do want to segue into perimenopause. So this is, and of course, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I'm perimenopausal. Can you shed some light into why this is such a critical stage in a woman's life, and the things that you've come across in addressing perimenopause, in talking to clients about it, and even with colleagues, and how we're moving the needle to address it as society?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that idea of moving the needle, right? Again, it's something that we're just not talked about. And I think for so many of us, when we present with these symptoms, like even the brain fog, we're like, wait a minute, is that perimenopause? What's happening? We're going to our healthcare professionals, and many of us are just not getting the support we need there. And many of us are struggling through it alone. Like I said, there are 34 symptoms. I was shocked when I learned that. You can sort of tick off what you hear as the most familiar ones, right? But we're not talking about it. And it's an interesting time in our lives for many women. Nowadays, many women are going through perimenopause, sometimes in their late 30s, but most generally in their 40s to early 50s. And it can last anywhere from 4 to 10 years. It's a long stretch of time. And many of us are having children later in life if we're having children. So you might be perimenopausal with a toddler. You might be perimenopausal with a kid or kids who are going through puberty. So there's a lot of hormonal stuff happening in your house, right? You might be empty nesting. And so it's a very particular time in life. We might be dealing with elderly parents. So there's a lot happening in our lives at this stage of life. And I think so many women I talk with say, oh, I remember how my mom was in perimenopause. Like, I'm just dreading it. And I'm here to say it does not have to be your mama's perimenopause. We can learn about it. We can understand our bodies. We can look at it as a celebration. One of my colleagues, I actually wrote this down because I wanted to remember to say this to you. One of my colleagues said that she was really starting to miss her period because she was very much into cyclical living. So understanding your energy phases and she's like, now that that's going away, what am I going to do? And she was talking to someone who's knowledgeable in Chinese medicine. And what this person said was, it was when you were getting your period regularly, all that blood that was leaving your body is now going to you back into your heart. And so it's really a time to sort of nourish yourself and take care of yourself and really kind of go inwards a little bit and take back this time as like a time of renewal. So I sort of loved that concept because I think for some women, and particularly my clients who had a fertility journey, this is like the door is closing. My fertile window is going to be gone soon. And it can be important to grieve that, whether or not you've had children, because it is a different phase of life.
And very true. What has been the dialogue? What has the dialogue looked like between you and your colleagues and being able to have the right conversations? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's so interesting. So I think when women come to me, a lot of times it's because they feel like, well, first of all, they're having the symptoms. Brain fog is super prevalent. I'm hearing that a lot. Stubborn weight gain, particularly around the middle. It's like metabolism has changed. My body has changed. I think for my colleagues in the fitness field, They're really tuned into the fact that the type of exercise that you were doing when you were younger doesn't necessarily support you right now. It needs to be more about movement every day and maybe not high intensity exercise every day. So it's really just getting comfortable with your body in this new phase and then learning how to support it. You don't have to be stuck with weight gain if you don't want to be. You can, there are ways to eat and nourish yourself that's going to help with hot flashes, that's going to help with the brain fog. So it's really about giving women the tools and the information to empower them to make the changes that are going to be super supportive at this stage in life.
And I agree with that. I think that this is conversations like this really spark my interest, because it doesn't seem like this was not something that women who were older than us, that this was often talked about. And
Right.
I almost feel like we're paving the way that this generation is of women, Gen Xers, and then older millennials, that we're having to deal with this and have much more prominent conversations with healthcare providers about listen, these are the things that are happening to my body. This is what I notice. This is the intensity. This is the frequency. Do you what has been your observation with medical providers who maybe it's just not universal across the board? What have you seen? What have you noticed?
Yeah. So like I said, I have a lot of women who come to me frustrated because they feel like their concerns are just sort of brushed aside. Like, yeah, it's perimenopause. That's what happens. I think that unless you're a nutritionist or are in some sort of field like that, honestly, your doctor just might not have the information. There's not, I've actually given lunch and learn seminars to fertility doctors to help them learn about nutrition, right? They're just not given that information in medical school. I assumed they were. They're not, right? So I think it's about, so I hear that the doctors are just sort of, they don't have the information. And so my clients just feel frustrated. The things that they were used to doing don't seem to work anymore as far as weight loss, or just like I said, waking up with that brain fog can feel a little scary. Is this really perimenopause, or is there something else going on? So I think, again, finding those helpers and healers who can support you in this stage, knowing that this just might not be your doctor's area of expertise.
So how does a patient, how can they have the conversation, or what are some examples of being able to initiate that conversation with their doctor if they're feeling intimidated that maybe the doctors are supposed to know all, which of course we know that they don't know all, but what are some impactful ways that women can initiate that conversation if they're sensing it's going to be a challenge, or maybe that their doctor may not hear where they're coming from?
So I don't think this is the answer you're looking for, but I'm always encourage my clients to get a second opinion if they feel like their doctor isn't a good fit for them. Maybe their doctor isn't a good fit for them. But if you love your doctor, you want to stay in the practice, you can keep a list of your symptoms, keep a list of when things are happening, and be really specific with your doctor. This is what's happening. This is when it's happening. And I believe I'm in perimenopause. How can you support me? Are there things you think I can do? Are there ways I can eat? Are there supplements I can take? Your doctor may or may not have that information. And if not, maybe you need to find a doctor or some other provider that does. But I think keeping track of, when is the last time I had my period? How long was it? So sort of getting that own download from yourself, just starting to gather information so that when you go in, you're like an informed consumer, right? You've got your list of symptoms. You know when things are happening. This is when you've noticed you're not sleeping. This is when you notice you get hot flashes. This is the brain fog that I'm having and how it affects me, whatever it is. But going in really empowered with a list of things that are happening and when, and initiating that conversation with your doctor.
So, of course, being the expert that you are in fertility and perimenopause, at what point do you sense that you address both in a client of yours that is experiencing both, that say you suspect that they're perimenopausal and that they're coming to you because they're that they want to address their fertility conditions and that they've got that goal that they're wanting to be successful?
Yeah. So for the fertility piece, clients will often come to me. Like I said, many times they're referred to me by their fertility doctor because I can give a different type of support than their doctor or clinic can. Sometimes they come to me because they're trying to conceive and it's taking a little bit longer, and they know, I'd say 90% of my clients, we start with the nutrition piece, but really I meet them where they're at. If their cycle's irregular, we're going to look at that and what are the things we can do to support that and help them get a regular cycle again. If they have a condition like PCOS, there's certain ways to eat, certain ways to exercise that can support that. For my clients, whether they're perimenopause or fertility clients, oftentimes we start with a food, mood, and poop journal because we want to look at how food is supporting or not supporting their body and their hormones. So again, just that gathering of information. So depending on what their goal is, I meet them where they're at. If they, are having issues in perimenopause, like brain fog, like fatigue, cut out sugar. We might just start with cutting out sugar and really see huge improvements there. Achy joints, we might cut out gluten, we might cut out sugar. That really seems to help. So it really depends upon the specific situation. But when women come to me, it's whether it's fertility or perimenopause, it's really about empowering them to tune into their bodies, to make the changes from a nutrition and lifestyle standpoint. And then just that gathering of information to really understand what's happening in their body month to month.
Okay, so I wanted to throw something out there and talk about a true or false statement. Do you true or false that a woman can get pregnant if she's perimenopause? True or false?
So, you're giving me a tricky question. So that's a tricky question, right? So your hormones are changing. That whole idea of hormonal balance is a little bit of a myth because your hormones are always fluctuating, right? If you think about your menstrual cycle, your hormones are always fluctuating. So women can get pregnant into their 40s. So I think I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. And this is fantastic. I know that I've come across where I've heard other women question whether or not that they could. And so it's obviously the chances are there as you're entering 40s. And I think it's great to clarify and to and also be optimistic, because once we're in our 40s, and if a woman is really truly wanting to be pregnant and explore all her options, that there's still something there for her to work with. Yes.
Yeah, I think, so if you're over 35 and you've been trying to conceive for 6 months, you should go to a fertility doctor, or in some cases, your OBGYN might be able to do testing, and they're going to look at certain hormone levels to see where you're at, things like AMH, to see where you're at, to see sort of what your potential is for getting pregnant. It's going to obviously differ from woman to woman. I happened to go into perimenopause pretty young. I suspect that that's because I had fertility issues. Do I know of women who have gotten pregnant naturally in their early to mid 40s? Yes. Does your chance of getting pregnant greatly reduce as you age? Yes. So it's going to be very individualized, but certainly not off the table. And then there are options. It might be using, I know this is not the topic of this conversation, but it might be using donor egg. You might decide that you're going to use a donor embryo. I mean, there are other ways to get pregnant too. There have been great advances in fertility treatment. And then, of course, other ways of building your family like adoption.
Excellent. Excellent. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back here on the Health Revolution.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. We're spending some incredible time with my guest, Jennifer Redmond. She is a fertility and hormonal health expert, a certified integrative nutrition coach, and she brings a lot of information to the table. And so we've been talking about fertility and perimenopause and different things to address. What do you see as emerging trends when it comes to integrative nutrition, or what are you keeping your eyes on within your scope of practice in terms of things of the newer and the more evolving components of integrative nutrition?
Yeah. So integrative nutrition is an interesting thing, right? Like, obviously I've studied all the dietary theories. I know all the things about nutrition, and I've studied hormonal health. But the interesting thing about integrative nutrition is that we consider that there are primary foods and secondary foods. So the food on your plate is not the only thing that nourishes you. And this is so important when it comes to fertility and perimenopause and menopause, because there are other things in your life that are going to support you and that are actually directly correlated to helping, some of them in helping with your hormone levels, in helping manage some of the symptoms. Those are things like movement and fitness, getting out in nature, spirituality, relationships, work-life harmony, reducing stress. Those are all things that nourish you and can really go a long way in supporting your hormonal health. So those are some of the other things that I really work on with my clients. I love that corporations, in addition to offering fertility benefits, wellness benefits around fertility, are starting to offer menopause benefits. That's amazing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is, right? I know. It's so exciting. I love that women are starting to talk about it more. I was at a dinner with a bunch of strangers, mostly women, sitting around a table, and we all started talking about perimenopause. And it was incredible, like not the thing I would have anticipated, right? So I think really educating women about our bodies, understanding how much nutrition and lifestyle can really support you. I am starting to see that become a little bit more mainstream, which is really exciting to me. There are starting to be some great events around perimenopause and menopause where people are coming together, whether it's medical professionals, nutrition coaches, hormone health experts, and women are gathering to really learn and share. So I think that it's just an exciting time. I really look at the work I'm doing as, I see it as a movement. I feel like there's this movement underfoot to really support women in such a different way through these various seasons of their lives.
And I think that this is incredible, and you're absolutely right. It seems like more conversations are brewing, if you will, and it tells, say, someone like me how important nutrition continues to be. Do you find, or let me back up a little bit, as you're working with clients, do you notice a trend of a client, or like, say, just trend across the board? Do you notice what nutritional patterns look like right now? Food intake patterns, I guess, if you will, when clients come to see you, are you noticing that there's a trend in a lack of something, an over excessiveness of something, or what do you notice?
Okay, I noticed that sugar is just so pervasive in everybody's diet. I think sugar is often a hidden ingredient. So we really need to be smart about reading labels. If we're not eating whole foods, we're eating packaged foods, then we really need to be smart about reading labels. And sugar has like a bazillion names, right? So we really need to understand. So that's one thing that I see. I see across the board, I think it's safe to say we're not getting enough vegetables. So trying to have something green with every meal is a great goal. So sugar, I think the vegetables, and then I think we're relying too much on processed foods, prepackaged foods. I think I'm starting to see that trend turn a little bit, but I think in the United States as a whole, we're so used to like fast foods, just getting everything on the go. And so I think there's just a really big reliance. I always ask my new clients, like, how much of your food is home cooked and how can we change that, And if we're not going to change it, how can your food sources be healthier? Because not everybody's going to get in the kitchen and cook, although I do encourage it.
That's true. That's true. So as we're getting older, perimenopause leading to menopause, obviously the hormonal changes are happening. Are there some staple supplements that you've come across that you prefer clients to incorporate in their nutritional intake? Are there just some standards, like you've got a small group of, let's make sure that we are checking off all the boxes properly? Are there some that you just are like, we must have these?
Yeah. So I think that, just taking a good multivitamin can be really helpful. I think as we get older, we want to be aware of our calcium levels. We want to start thinking about our bone health. So in addition to supplements for bone health, we want to think about what are the exercises, the weight-bearing exercises that are going to really help us to have healthy bones as we age. Many women who are struggling with digestive issues, a really good quality probiotic can be really helpful. I often say that if you don't feel like your probiotic is working, then find another one. You should really notice that support. A lot of women do well with magnesium to help with sleep. So again, it depends on the individual circumstance. I also want to say the majority of us are vitamin D deficient. So when you get your blood levels checked every year, hopefully you're doing that. You're getting your doctor is checking on your vitamin D. And vitamin D, there are some good studies lately too around vitamin D and fertility. So I think paying attention to all that is super important.
I love that. And you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, last time I had my blood work checked, I was low on vitamin D. And so I'm part of the vast majority for sure. So I'm curious, what are some of your favorite, and this is a personal question, what are some of your favorite ways that you make sure your overall well-being, your mind-body connection is on point? What are some of your go-tos that you like to do for you?
Yeah. So I really love a morning practice, and it changes periodically. I love to exercise first thing. I live in the Northeastern United States. I work out outside as much as I can in the summer. I actually go to an outdoor boot camp 3 days a week. So my morning practice typically consists of some journaling, maybe some meditation. It definitely consists of exercise. So I find that it's really important for me to sort of fill my cup and get really grounded before I start my day. And so my morning practice honestly starts kind of the night before, right? Because I want to set myself up. I want to make sure I've got my journal where I know where it is, and I sort of have an idea of what I want to do the next day. So I think having that morning practice to really ground me really supports me through the rest of the day. And then I always try and get out at some point during the day for a walk. I live close to the beach. I'm fortunate like that. So I try to take a walk on the beach every day because that's my happy place. And again, just sort of getting out in nature, super important.
I like how you think. I definitely like how you think. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back here on The Health Revolution.
Jeff Pearson here, host of Invisible Condition, where we talk about all the people who are living and thriving with all those conditions that you can't necessarily see from the outside. Join me every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on E360 TV.
We're back here on The Health Revolution. We've been spending time with Jennifer Redmond, fertility and hormonal health expert. She is someone who's extremely well-versed and skilled in covering fertility and perimenopause with her clients. And so real quickly, I want to go ahead and put up your website on the screen so that as our viewers are able to as they're wanting to tap into more of what you have to offer, do you have any upcoming events or things on the horizon for the near future?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So obviously I work one-on-one with my clients. I am in the process of launching 2 digital courses. One is called Fertility Reimagined, and the other is called Perimenopause Reimagined. It's just some simple tools and modules to help you feel empowered to get your symptoms under control and to manage this season of life from a nutrition and lifestyle perspective. I am going to be launching a podcast at the end of September. I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to have you as a guest, Adriana, and continue the conversation. Yeah, and that's my website. And then also you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. It's Jen Redmond, INHC.
Yes, fantastic. And we have more information in the show notes. So for viewers who are tuning in, and if you're happen to catch the replay, make sure that you are aware of that. And those of you who have been tuning into the show, just know that you can always reach out to us at our website, which is thehealthrevolutiontv.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter and that allows you to stay tuned for upcoming show information. And Jennifer, it has been incredible to spend time with you. I know that you are someone who I jokingly say, but with a lot of endearment, you bring the receipts and you have a lot to offer. Anything that you would share in terms of someone who wants to, real quickly, someone who wants to pursue a degree or a job in integrative nutrition?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm a graduate of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and then also Aviva Ram's functional medicine course for female practitioners. So some great resources there. And I'm always open to emails and conversations. So feel free to reach out to me too if you want more information about any of that.
Yay. All right, that's all the time that we have. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can always catch the Health Revolution Tuesdays and Thursdays on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until the next episode, we will see you soon. Take care.